As I record this video, the Federal Reserve this morning on September 8th just released its beige book where it looks at economic activity across the US for the previous couple of months. And this beige book updates effectively what we'd seen in Q1 and Q2 of this year so that policymakers know how growth is occurring, where growth is increasing or decreasing, what perhaps should be going on with interest rates. Well, the beige book showed that growth is starting to slow. Now, this is not the same thing as saying growth is turning negative. That's not the case whatsoever, but rather we saw very strong growth in the US economy in Q1 and Q2, and that growth rate is starting to moderate. And there's a number of reasons for that. We don't need to get into what those reasons are, but growth is slowing. We also see this with unemployment statistics that are coming out, that reductions in unemployment, which have been at very high levels, unemployment at high levels, but the reductions at great numbers, has also started to slow. So fewer numbers of people seem to be coming off unemployment rolls or returning to the workforce right now per month than had been the trend earlier in the year. We see this nationally. We're seeing this somewhat in Las Vegas. But what do these numbers, what do these insights mean for the housing market? Well, let's find out. I'm Justin Miller with the Chong Miller Group, and this is the September 2021 residential real estate market update for the Las Vegas Valley. And remember, in this market update series, we always look at single family, residential, resale houses to determine how the market's going, to determine what's going on for buyers and sellers, because that's the majority of the market for real estate here in the Valley. So I want to dive in pretty quickly this month because you'll remember last month I started to include a few extra numbers, a few extra statistics as related to townhomes and condos, because with escalating prices, we see increasing numbers of people needing to move into the multifamily housing product for purchases. So there's a lot of data to get through today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, the first number I want to talk about, and this number that I'm going to give you diverges some from what you may have been reading recently in the local real estate press here in Las Vegas. The number is the median price for resale of single-family detached residential homes in the Valley. That number is 402,500, and that number has actually come down slightly, 0.5%, from what we saw at the end of July of 2021. Now, some news outlets are reporting this number is 405 and that it's completely flat with the prior month. They're reporting that because they are including those new construction houses that have been entered into the MLS by builders. And it clouds what the data say. And if you go back and look at several of the earlier videos from earlier this year and late last year, I talk very explicitly about why I exclude those. And so just to give you a taste of what that is, the median price on a new construction that happened to make it into the MLS in August was $430,000, very considerably higher than the resale market. But there were only 86 of them. And that's a very small part of the market. So allowing 86 houses to fluctuate by thousands of dollars, what the median price is, kind of clouds the data. There's no really good reason to look at cloudy data when we can be more specific about something. The more specific we are, the more accurate our understanding of what's going on in the market and how we can respond to it. If you were driving a car and the speedometer said, you're traveling in the 60s or you're traveling in the 80s, it's not particularly helpful, right? You want a speedometer that's going to tell you the speed you're actually going. Same thing, we want to have accurate statistics and we want to know what's going on in the market. Pricing came down 0.5%, so very, very slightly, but that's what happened. It's actually up, however, 22% year over year from 330,000 in August of 2020 to the 402,500 in August of 2021. Now, I'll also note median home sale prices are up $62,500 year to date. That's up 18.4% in 8 months. Now, you may remember over the previous couple of months, I've been talking, I don't think pricing trends are going to continue as strong as what we'd been seeing earlier in the year, that I thought that pricing would start to moderate. And in fact, last month, year to date, we'd been up 18.9%. We're now up 18.4% year to date. I think we'll see prices increase a little bit, but I think we're still going to see median price growth year to date by the end of the year, probably being closer to 16 to 18% instead of where we'd been looking earlier in the year at 20 something percent. All right, so that's price of the median resale home. What about price per foot? Because I've been looking at that. I look at that sometimes. Let me caution you, price per foot is it's a dirty number in the sense that it clouds a lot. Everything loads into a price per foot number. And if you think about pricing your house on a per foot basis, you're probably making some really bad mistakes. And if you're thinking about buying a house on a per foot basis, you're probably making really bad mistakes. But the number does give us some insight into something. So the median, $221 a foot in August, was up from $219 a foot in July. That's up 1%, where median sale price was down 0.5%. We're up from $177, or up 24.9% from where we were August of last year. We're up $38 per foot, or 20.8% year to date on price per foot. And that indicates that the market for single family houses is still trending a little bit toward the higher end, not dramatically, but a little bit, which is pulling up price per foot for the median house, even though we're seeing median prices not move quite as strongly as we're seeing on the per foot basis. That's the interesting thing about that per foot number. Okay, so that's pricing, but what about activity in the marketplace? Well, in August, we had 3,142 single family resale homes sold. That's down, it's down 4.2% from 3,281 that were sold in July. It's also up 15.6% from the 2,719 that were sold in August of 2019. And I will point out to you that while year-over-year comparisons earlier this year had been very hard because of COVID lockdowns and other things going on in the economy associated with that, August of 2019 was a pretty typical month, and we're up 15.6% from that number. Now, I'll also note, though, because we are down slightly month over month, there is a seasonal pattern that we may now be seeing the reemergence of. And this is actually good, right? There's normal seasonal patterns in the market. Some months are active, some months are slow. For example, December is generally slow. Well, actually, summertime, July, August, also tend to be a bit slower than spring and fall in the Las Vegas Valley. And so it's likely that what we're actually seeing right now is the reemergence of normal seasonal patterns into the marketplace, which is actually a really good thing. So we're down 4.2% month over month. What about pending, though? And this is why I think the seasonal patterns are emerging here. Pending home sales, you'll recall, those are contracts that have been written, in this instance during the month of August, that would then likely close in the next month. So in the month of September. Well, in August of 2021, pending home sales, pending contracts, 3,575, up 15.4% from 3,099 pending at the end of July. We're also up 16% from the 3,082 pending at the end of August of last year. Now, why would pending be high when home sales in August had come down a little bit? In a normal year, Las Vegas has a monsoonal season that is approximately July. It may be slightly late June through early August, but it's approximately the month of July. Well, this year, we had strong monsoonal flow and a lot of torrential rain in the valley in July of 2021. That would suggest, because people tend not to go and view homes when it's raining or when it's windy, that contracts that would have been written in July and closed in August were being written in August and they'll close in September. So that's why we would have elevated pendings in August, even though we had somewhat reduced level of closings in August. I think we're going to see this in an elevated closing number in September. And I think then very specifically, we're seeing weather-induced normal seasonal patterns starting to reemerge into the marketplace here in Las Vegas. What about houses on market? There's been a lot of talk from me specifically, also from some other people, about how inventory constrained this market has been. And if there had been additional inventory in the market, we may even have seen stronger home sales. Well, in August of 2021, there were 3,885 houses for sale, houses on market. That's down 7.8% from the 4,212 that were on the market in July. It's down 42.7% from the 6,779 that were on the market in August of 2019. So let's talk about this, right? I mean, those are numbers, and the numbers imply things, but let's give some context to this. If we look at sort of average years in the Las Vegas residential housing market, there are years clearly we'd have to eliminate, and there are years that we'd say, yeah, those look like they're pretty normal. Pretty normal would be 2012 to 2019. 2019 predates the pandemic. 2012 is after most all of the dislocation from the housing crisis and financial crisis that started here in 2006 and across much of the country in 2008. So looking specifically at that time frame, 2012 to 2019, normal inventory in the marketplace was about 10,000 houses per month. There's fluctuation, having to do with seasonality. Some years a little bit stronger than other years, but we're looking at just about 10,000 houses in any given month being in the marketplace for sale. 3,885 for sale in August. We're down still 60% from normal inventory. We are still very inventory constrained in this market. Make no mistake about it. So we have inventory shortages. We also have strong demand. Inventory shortages will continue. Remember, we had 86 enter into the MLS, new construction homes that sold in August. 2.5% of the market. Not all new construction homes enter into the MLS, but a significant percentage of them do. And so new housing construction is not making up for the inventory shortfall. It's not going to be making up for the inventory shortfall. We are way down in terms of inventory, and that's something that we need to recognize because we're going to be contending with it for quite some time. So new inventory obviously comes into the market. Where does it come from? It comes from new listings. People decide they're going to list their house for sale. In August, new listings 4,042. That's down. It's down 3.4% from 4,183. In July, it's up 4.8% from 3,857 last year in August of 2020. Again, I think this is starting to show normal seasonal patterns, and this is a little bit problematic now. You'll remember earlier this year I'd been talking that I expected inventory to be entering, new listings coming into the market, a bit above normal seasonal patterns. And we started to see that. But now what we're starting to see is regular seasonal slowdown, and that normal seasonal slowdown means that we're still not making up the inventory for the inventory shortfall that we have in the marketplace. And we'll see whether or not that slowdown is a little bit faster or a little bit slower than what we get in a normal year. But at this particular point, it's about normal reduction in new listings into the marketplace. And of course, why do people stop listing their homes in the fall and in the winter? People have family members going back to school or going back to work, or they've got plans they're starting to put in place for the holidays, and then of course cooking for the holidays and taking friends and family out for the holidays and the like. So we see this normal seasonal pattern. We're starting to see it reemerge here in the data, but I'm concerned now that where I had believed and turned out to be accurate, that we would see above normal inflow into the market, that we're no longer going to be seeing above normal inflow into this market. And it's going to cost us additional inventory. And while we're past the acute crisis level of inventory that we'd seen earlier in the year, where we were operating at 25% of normal inventory, we're still only operating at less than 40% of normal inventory. And in some of the geographical locations and or some of the pricing locations, inventory constraints are really, really consequential right now. So anyhow, inventory is not getting better. It's perhaps getting worse. There is this one other place that new inventory, well, not new, but returning inventory comes from. The back on market numbers, I've been looking at that for the past few months. Back on market down about 20 from the prior month. We're elevated by about 12 to 15% from normal back on market, where a contract is written, a pending is written, but for some reason it fails. There's always ones that fail. Failures are a little bit higher rate right now than typical, but it's not sufficient to overcome our inventory deficits whatsoever. All right, so let's move on to this other category of data that I don't normally look at, and that is condos and townhomes. There have been many people who have been wringing their hands talking about unaffordability or lack of affordability in the housing market. And if you go back and watch my Ask the Professor video on affordability, I dispute the contention. There will always be individuals who cannot afford housing. I grant you that. That's a feature of the market. There'll always be individuals who cannot afford to buy the car that they want or to buy whatever other things that they want. And we can get into a philosophical discussion about whether that's good or bad. But it's still a feature of the market. Housing affordability today is not nearly as bad as it had been in the 2006, the last time we were seeing record prices in the Valley. It's actually not as bad as it had been in 2019. We see housing affordability being something that's interesting, but not out of the ordinary right now whatsoever. Nonetheless, there's a significant portion of the population who found themselves perhaps priced out of the single-family home market, but are still wanting to be and capable of being homeowners. And so where can they go? They can go to multifamily housing, condos and townhomes. So let's look a little bit at the condo market, and then we'll look a little bit at the townhome market, because they are less expensive. Obviously, the units tend to be smaller, but there are advantages to condos and townhomes as well. So how are those markets faring? So just to give you an understanding of why I've always concentrated on the single family home market, first I'll talk about market size. In August of 2021, there were 544 condos for sale. That's as opposed to 3,885 single-family homes for sale, right? The condo market is relatively very small, less than 20%, about 15% the size of the single-family residential resale market. So the numbers are inherently smaller. Well, in that smaller market, in August, the median sales price was $199,500. Obviously, it's a lot less expensive, less than half of the price of a single family home. But that number was up from 189, or 5.5% in July, and it was up 33.9% from 149,000 in August last year. The condo market has recovered. In fact, it's doing well, and we are above where we had been before going into the pandemic. People who are buying condos are seeing significant price appreciation. What about unit sales? Unit sales in August, 501, down 1.6% from 509 units that sold in July, up 34.7% from the 372 condos that sold in August of 2020. Now, do note August of 2020 for condos, that was the bottom of the market in terms of sales, resales. And that's because many of the advantages of living in a condo had sort of been eliminated and turned into disadvantages during the lockdowns. You could not access the pools or the gyms, the other common areas. And so you're paying the HOA fees for those amenities and you're not able to actually use them. So condo sales definitely took a significant hit in volume terms and in pricing terms. We've fully recovered. Okay, so what about townhomes? And why don't I lump townhomes and condos directly together? Well, townhomes, let's talk market size. For sale in August, 329. So a little bit more than half of the condo market in terms of market size. What about pricing and numbers of units sold? Median sale price, townhomes in August 2021, $283,000. Now, that's a lot different than the condo market, $199,500. But if I lump these together, we'd be disguising trends and pricing information between them. They're really different markets. They're both multifamily housing that's available for purchase, but they're really different markets. And so 283,000, that is up 1.1% from 280,000 in July of 2021. It's up 20.4% from the 235,000 in August of 2020. Suggests actually that the townhome market may have been a little bit less impacted by restrictions last year, but we're seeing strong price appreciation. What about units sold? In August, 369 townhomes. That's up 7% from 345 townhomes in July. It's up 31.8% from the 280 townhomes sold in August of 2020. Again, 329 of these for sale. It's less than 10% of the size of the single-family home market. These are really different products, and I don't like to cloud them together. And generally, I don't talk that much about them because the number of people who are transacting in condos and townhomes on any particular month, considerably less than 1/3 of all the people who are buying single-family homes in 1 month. Not 1/3 of the market, but a whole different set of markets that equal less than 1/3 of the single-family resale Nonetheless, again, I think the data is becoming increasingly important because I think that the number of sales in these markets, townhomes and condos, is going to be increasing. We'll also see then demand-induced price increases in these markets as we go forward because single family is so inventory constrained and because pricing pressures in the single family home market have been really strong. So in summary, August, we're starting to see the reemergence of normal seasonal patterns into the residential resale marketplace. That's a really positive sign. It suggests we're overcoming many, not all, but many of the issues that we were seeing in the lockdowns and the resultant dislocations into the marketplace coming out of those lockdowns. But we're still really, really inventory constrained. And that takes me to my last points. This market remains really strong. If you're a buyer, there's a lot of demand that you're competing with, and there's a shortage of inventory, especially if you're in certain geographies or certain price points. You really need professional help to be able to get through that. And let me give you an anecdote that's true and insightful. While people talk about the market slowing down, there's a quantitative issue and a qualitative issue. We have a client who we put in an offer for a purchase for her. She was one of 35 people bidding on a particular property. This was a couple of months ago, 3 months ago. Earlier, well, actually in late August, we put in an offer on a property for her, a different property. She was one of 13. So the market has slowed, right? Quantitatively, the market has slowed. There had been 34 competitors, and then there were 12 competitors. Qualitatively, not so much. Multiple offers that she's in competition with 3 months ago, multiple offers she's in competition with this past month. She won this competition, she's in contract. There's a lot of people who are looking and searching and offering who are failing. You need to have a professional representing you who really understands this market and understands there are ways to improve the likelihood that somebody's going to actually get their offer accepted. At the Chong Miller Group, we can help you with that. We help buyers. We help buyers all the time, and we're very successful with our buyer clients. On the other hand, if you're a seller, know this. If you put your house into the market, it's going to sell, and you could get substantial money for it. But if you put your house in the market the wrong way, it could sit there. There's inventory sitting on the market for months on end. There are sellers that are having to do price cuts because they put their house into the market the wrong way. And they're doing price cuts because their house has been sitting there mispriced. They cut their price maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. Some of those actually end up expiring and not selling at all. Or some sellers are getting frustrated with the experience and they're withdrawing their house from the marketplace. This is actually going on right now in a really hot market that's incredibly inventory constrained. If you have an agent who doesn't know what they're doing, or if you try to represent yourself, the likelihood of you sitting on the market longer increases. The likelihood of you getting as much money as you could for your property decreases. And the likelihood of you getting into a contract that fails increases, right? There are still significant numbers of properties that are going back on market because a contract fails. The number in August was 1,176. The number of sold was 3,142. So a third of properties that are going into contract are failing and falling out of contract. To make sure that you put your property into the market the right way, that you get into a solid contract that's actually going to close, You want to make sure you're working with professionals, people who understand what this market is and how to best get you through this market. At the Chong Miller Group, we represent sellers as well. We're very successful at it. Please give us a call if you're thinking about buying, if you're thinking about selling. We would love to sit down and talk with you about it. There is no obligation. You may decide that we're not a good match. You might decide we're a perfect match, but we definitely can help you, and at the very least, we'll illuminate issues for you. Give us a call, talk with us. We'll set an appointment. We'll look at what it is you want to do and how we can actually help. I am Justin Miller with the Chong Miller Group. We look forward to helping you. Please feel free to subscribe to our videos here on YouTube. Please also feel free to reach out. You've got our email address. We look forward to talking with you. We'll see you soon. Thank you.